at the end of round 6, expect a lot of media people to come out with all the statistics about how there aren't that many changes to the 8 from round 6 to the end of the season. However, we are at the end of round 5, but like anything when it comes to sport, being first is the most important thing. So, how many changes to the 8 at the end of round 5 can we expect come the end of the season? Who is the most likely to fall out? Who is the most likely to come in? And the team right now, I think, is most susceptible to not make the finals in 2023. Let's have a chat. Gather rounds done and dusted. What a successful experiment, and something that needs to stay in South Australia, in my opinion, pretty much forever. Why the only non-negotiable football events happen in Victoria, I've got no idea. Okay, I know why, but it's stupid. Let's just leave Gather Round in South Australia. The numbers were awesome. The event was great. How much will the novelty last? Who knows? But that's not the point of the video. Let's talk about the 8. So let's start with the ladder. And as you can see, if you take first and second away, it's actually not the most surprising ladder in the world. Now, sure, positioning is positioning. It's a very unfair fixture. You could say at the end of round 17, we'd have a better idea, but even then, I think there are like 4 different teams that won't have played each other by the time round 17 hits. Hey, Travis Old's got a difficult job doing the fixture, what can I say? But I think at this point, we can soundly say, this isn't that controversial, that there are at least 3 teams that are locked into the 8. It would take a disaster of massive proportions if Collingwood, Melbourne, and Sydney, any one of those 3 teams, don't make the 8. If any of those 3 teams, I'll learn how to speak in a second, if only it's my only job here. If any of those teams don't make it, we have a genuine shitstorm on our hands for those football clubs. So I'm not really going to talk about those 3. Congrats to those 3 teams. I genuinely believe Adelaide from here need to make it. They've played that well for 4 out of the 5 weeks. Okay, they played really well against the Giants. They just did not kick straight. They only played well for a quarter and a half against the Tigers. I'm not really counting that. But if we give them 2 quarters against the Giants, we give them 1.5 quarters against Richmond, they have played, let's do some quick math here, 15.5 quarters of pretty awesome football. Out of 20. If you're not making the 8, that's pretty disappointing. And Brisbane at 8th, I expect to make as well. Now, I don't like the somewhat schizophrenic tendencies of that group outside of playing North and at the Gabba, but they're good enough that they should make it. So that's 5. Let's talk about first and second, St Kilda and Essendon. Now, in my humble opinion, and that's kind of what we do around here, I think one of those 2 do make it. The problem that I've got is I don't know which one, because both of them have outstanding cases. The Saints are playing unbelievable football. The Ross Lyon defensive game plan, I understand it. Essendon also have a defensive identity under Brad Scott. One of them scores more heavily than the other, the Bombers, of course, but the Saints are missing really good players. But for some reason, I don't think that both are going to make it. I'm happy to be wrong. That is the beauty of this sport. But I don't think they both make it. And honestly, if I had to pick between the 2, I don't want to. I really don't. Out of those 2, I mean, who is better is really hard. St Kilda have only lost 1 game. It was by a goal to Collingwood. And they're on top of the ladder. They're probably better. But I think one of them is going to drop out. And if you're thinking, hang on, does anyone need to drop out at this point? Well, yes, for a couple of reasons. 1, history. If you have a look at those numbers over the past 5 years, we have had 12 changes to the 8 from post round 6 onwards at an average of 2.4 a year, which means we are going to get in the realm of 2 or 3 changes. So this nitpickiness is kind of where it's at. Now, could Adelaide miss the 8? Absolutely. Could St Kilda and Essendon miss the 8? Of course. I would argue, though, and I'll explain why, that at this point in time, Carlton are not being talked about enough as a team that could miss the 8. They have a percentage under 100. Yes, they played Richmond, they've played Geelong. Understand that. They got smacked by the Crows, so you might see it as an overreaction. But that midfield group haven't really fired a shot in the last fortnight. Those two talls aren't quite working together that well. They're small forwards. Yes, I really like Jesse Motlop and Corey Durden as players, but they're not the types that are going to get Carlton out of jail if the two talls aren't firing. Their key defenders are great, but Doherty out is huge. Tom De Koning is not worth 800 grand a year, and Carlton are just going at this point. I genuinely think St Kilda, Essendon, Carlton, and Adelaide, those four, I'm not going to put Brisbane in the lock category, but they're kind of tier 2 for me in the group of the 8. But of the other four, it would be the same amount of surprise if any of those missed from here. But I feel like Victoria would implode if Carlton did miss, for the obvious reasons. They've got all the All-Australians, 2 Coleman medalists, a Brownlow medalist, of course, in Cripps, and a guy who I think will win one in the future in, of course, Sam Walsh. So, the Victorian media is going to focus on that. But I am in no way putting Carlton in this safe camp, and they're 5 rounds in, their percentage is under 100. That's big. For all of the crap that Collingwood got last year, for all of these tight wins, their percentage was still 104. Not great, but it was still over 100. So those are the 4 that I suspect will be in danger of dropping out. But the interesting question is, what about the teams that would come in? Of course, like you do team selection, like you do any kind of predictions, when something has to fall, something has to rise. And in this case, of course, the obvious answer is Geelong. I mean, were we really buying the whole 0-3 thing and they were absolutely done? Were we really? I would argue we were not. I wasn't. I'm still not. And yes, they've only beaten Hawthorn and West Coast. Better than 0-5, I guess. They're going to make the 8. Now, whether the Cats are playing good enough football to win the flag yet, I would say no. I am not discounting them from the contender pile either, because as we know with, say, Richmond in 2017, and of course Geelong last year, it's not about how you start in this competition, it's how you build. Hawthorn and West Coast, 2 pretty good building pieces to build off of, I would say. The other team that I think are the most likely to go into the 8 is Port. Now, they've had a pretty nightmarish start to their fixture, and they're 3-2. That's a massive win. And this group is playing for Ken Hinkley, despite the obvious flaws in their back 6 that will get exposed by better teams, but there's not many that better teams to come in the next 2 months of football. However, I don't really see anyone else. I don't buy Richmond, which you can tell from my video that I did yesterday, which you can go and check out in the description below, or you can click the Daz Talks Footy channel little line thing there, and it'll pop up beautifully. I really don't buy the Western Bulldogs, and it's why I put them in the thumbnail. They're a fraudulent football team at the moment, and I don't buy them for a second. And I'm sorry, but I don't buy the coach at all. The list is pretty good. The way they're playing is shit. And I don't think they're making the 8. So here we go. The predictions as it stands right now. In, I've got Geelong and I've got Port. I think Port play finals. That's terrifying. Out, I've got St Kilda and I've got Carlton. Yes, Carlton. It's through gritted teeth, I know, and I don't have a problem with the Saints at all. I really don't. At 4-1 with a 1-goal loss, they've done nothing wrong. Nothing wrong. I just worry about their ability to score. That's it. And we're here to make big predictions. So that's it, guys. Comment below. Let me know what you think. More stuff coming very, very soon. Subscribe to join the Daz Talks Footy family. Click the like button if you like the video. Hope you enjoy your week. I'll see you very soon. Goodbye.